What to do when someone pushes your buttons. It's Dr. Mary, and today's question comes actually from a few different women who emailed me and have just said, I've had a really rough month with relationships, with family, with friends, with colleagues, and I just keep feeling like I'm on the defensive, I'm really negative, I'm just having a rough time. How do I deal with this? So that is what we're going to talk about today. How do you process hurt feelings and negative emotions in a way that feels productive and not like you're just ruminating over that situation over and over again and sinking even deeper into a negative state? So I'm going to share with you my 5-step process for dealing with difficult emotions when you're trying to figure out what just happened. How do I even respond to this? I don't even know what to do. Now, caveat, this may be difficult to do in person in a situation at first because it requires a little bit of thought and practice on your process till it becomes second nature. So you might want to try it first in a situation where someone's left you a voicemail and you have a little time to think before you have to get back to them, or someone has emailed you something that just provoked a negative reaction, and just work with it. Work with it for a little while. You may even, and I've done this with my clients before in session, you may even do practice. So if something has happened in the past that triggered you and really evoked a negative emotion, have a friend, a coach, a colleague, somebody to kind of practice, role play almost with you. If this were to happen again, how would I handle it differently? And go through this process. Practice makes, I'm not going to say perfect because there's no such thing, but practice makes it easier for you to process as things occur in the moment. So just know that this is a process and it may take time to learn. Okay, so that being said, step number 1. I usually find it useful to journal or talk to someone and explain to them what happened. Now, here's the key. Just the facts. He said this, I said that. Don't assume you know what that other person was feeling. Don't put words in their mouth. Keep it to the facts at this point. No feeling, no emotion, just this is what happened. I got an email from a coworker that said this, and it upset me, or whatever. Or we got in a fight. I got in a fight with my spouse. He said this, I said this, whatever it may be. So just the facts. And I say just the facts because that allows us to take a step back and kind of get our emotions out of the way for just a moment, so that when we go back and analyze those facts, we're not clouded with the emotions that accompany them that may make us put words into their mouth or assume an emotion or assume their motives, when you really can't do that. We can't necessarily assume someone else's motives. So that's the first step, just the facts. So journal it, tell a loved one, I'm trying to process something. I just need you to kind of be there as a buffer to talk it through with me. Step 1, this is what happened, just the facts. The next step is to dive into how you felt and why. And when I say dive, I mean dive. So go deeper than just, it made me mad. Why did it make you mad? And keep diving. So what I and my clients and I, when we work and we do this together, oftentimes we find that the emotion that that particular instance brought up really had little to do with that instance and more to do with like an old childhood story or replay of not enoughness, of self-worth, of doubt, of different people in different situations from decades sometimes ago that are suddenly entering into your emotions in this particular conversation. So I'll give you an example. So one of my clients and I the other day were talking about an instance where she had gotten into a fight with her current spouse. Husband number one was very verbally abusive to her. And so when she relayed the story to me, and I said, okay, just the facts, what happened? He said this, I said this, he said this, I said this. We went back and forth for a while. And then immediately she started into, and he always does this, and da-da-da-da-da, right? So the story started coming out, and she was putting words in his mouth, and she was putting feelings. And I said, hold on, wait a minute. Are you sure that all of these emotions are really from this one interaction? Because it almost sounds like you're talking about your first husband and not your current husband in this interaction. And the light bulb went off because it was like, oh my gosh. Because I had this old pattern of first and second husband that were verbally abusive. Now my third husband, even though he wasn't verbally abusive in that situation, it's almost like she's conditioned to expect the worst, to expect the abuse, to expect the next hit, to expect the other shoe to drop. So what did you feel and why? And dive deep. And it may be that that person said something really hurtful to you, and that's exactly what you're processing. And it has nothing to do with your past or anything from childhood or anything like that. But it may also be that this is a pattern. And you're bringing in not just the emotion of this one interaction, but the emotions of previous interactions with different people in different situations. And it's just piling up and piling up and piling up and making it seem a lot bigger than it probably really actually was in that moment. So only you can decide that. And again, sometimes it's helpful to have a third party help you process that so you can help better figure out, okay, was it what he said that triggered me? Or was it my own story from the past coming back? And that's really what triggered me. And I felt stupid and small and not enough. And my self-worth was threatened. And, all of these things that, we've been on this planet for a while now. And so it's likely we've had some negative interactions with people. And if you have a history of abuse, especially verbal, physical, mental, sexual, you may be bringing that unconsciously to the forefront, to the table, when you have a negative interaction with somebody. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing or anything. Just be aware so that you can better assess in this situation what really happened. How did I feel and why? Okay, step 3. What needs to be done and why? And realize that an acceptable answer is nothing. So, as many of you know, I am a college professor in addition to being a coach. And quite often these days, and my colleagues and I talk about this all the time, we get some pretty nasty, rude emails from students. Not all the students, but there's always a handful that are just really nasty and rude and disrespectful. And if, in any corporate environment, you've probably gotten a rude email from somebody. So, again, what happened? So it may be, I got an email from this person that said this, and this. It made me feel this, and this because, so combining step 1 and step 2 there, what needs to be done and why? So I was processing one of these emails with a colleague of mine and the other day, and he's like, this student has been increasingly rude and hostile throughout the semester. So this is a period of 16 weeks. So over the 16 weeks, every week, it's just another rude, at least one rude email, very hostile, just getting increasingly escalating. And when my colleague came to me, he's like, just read this. Am I overreacting? And he's like, I'm giving you, there is a history here. I'm just tired of this. I'm tired of the rude and the disrespectfulness. And what should I do here? So I read through the email, and yes, it was very rude, and yes, it was very disrespectful. So when we got to that processing of what needs to be done, when I read the student's email to my colleague, I said, there's 2 different ways you can handle the situation. On the one hand, there is nothing that actually needs to be done because the student did not ask a question that would demand a reply. He was complaining, he was disrespectful, he was rude about a grade issue, but he didn't actually ask a question about his grade or about the way something was, whatever, right? And so I said, an acceptable response here would actually be no response, because I'm not seeing an issue that actually needs to be addressed. He's complaining, he's clearly upset. You've said there's a history here, but he hasn't asked you a question. So there is no need to reply. So one option would be you could delete the email. And I think you would be completely in your right to do that, because no question was asked. There's no response actually needed. It sounds to me like he just wanted to vent about his grade. Or you could come up with a tactful way to respond to this student's concern, addressing not his emotion, not his rudeness, although you could respond and say something along the lines of, I'm happy to answer you, but I do ask that you treat me with respect, and until I get a respectful, courteous email or question from you, I'm not going to respond. You could also address, in the midst of the tirade, there were points that the student made, and so you could address those points, but it's not actually necessary, because there was nothing, it was more of a venting email than a questioning, needing an answer kind of email. So again, what happened? How did you feel and why? What needs to be done? And it may be actually nothing needs to be done. Doesn't mean you may not do something. And my colleague ultimately did decide to respond to that student, even though it wasn't technically a necessity. There wasn't a need to do that in terms of the interaction and what was being delivered via email. Step number 4, what do you want to do and why? Now, again, if you've just gotten a really rude email or gotten in a fight with somebody, you may want to say something very hostile and rude in return. You may want to vent your emotions. You may want to make accusations. You may want to fix the situation. You may want to do a variety of things. So this is your opportunity to sort through all of the different things you may want to do, all of the options, if you will, for how to respond. You may want to delete it. You may want to be vicious and nasty back to someone who's been vicious and nasty to you. You may want to throw something. You may want to hit something. You may want to hit a pillow. Or a punching bag. You may want to yell at the person. You may want to do a variety of things. So this is your opportunity to either dialogue again with a friend, like my colleague and I did, about how he should deal with a student, or you may want to just journal about it. My spouse made me so mad, I just want to leave, I want to get a divorce, I want to whine to my friend, I want to yell at him, I want to say, why can't you ever do this right? All these things, right? All the things that may happen. What do you want to do and why? So the why is really important here, because you may want to do a variety of things, but you need to fill in the blank as to why. To teach them a lesson, so I feel better. And as you do that, you may realize that your why isn't for your highest good, right? So you could respond to a nasty email with a nasty email. Why? Why would you do that? Think kind of diving deep, thinking down the road, is this just going to create a vicious cycle of nasty emails back and forth? And does that really serve a purpose? Is that in your highest good? So explore all the different things that you want to do and why. And now we come to step number 5. This is why I said, it takes practice to get through this process, because there's a lot of steps here. Analyzing what happened, just the facts. How did it make you feel and why? What needs to be done, if anything, and why? What do you want to do and why? And then we come to the actual action step. You get to decide, given all of this processing that you've just done, And again, at first it's going to take time. As you get better at it, it's going to become more natural and you'll be able to respond more quickly and maybe even in the moment and not go down this path of having a heated argument that really gets nowhere. The decision point. What will you do here? What will you do? And as you ask that, I want you to keep two things in mind. Number one, will this serve my highest good? So the action step should be in service to you and to the other person. Will this serve my highest good? Is this in alignment with my soul, with who I want to be? And I'm guessing for most of you, myself included, doing something nasty or vindictive may be gratifying in the moment. It may feel good in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's really not in alignment with who you want to be. So that's why I ask you to go through all 5 of those steps. Get it all on the table in your journal or processing with a friend, and then decide what is the best action for me to take here. What's in alignment for me? The other piece that I put out there is one of my favorite authors, Byron Katie, has a set of sayings that she says she uses when she gets in these kind of situations and she's trying to decide whether to say something or not. And her guideposts are, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So is it true? And again, you can't make assumptions about what somebody else was thinking or feeling in any given moment. So you can say something like, that really hurt my feelings. If that really hurt your feelings, yeah, that's true. Is it kind? And kind to you and to the other person. And I want to put a little tangent in here. Kind does not necessarily mean nice. So when I think of nice, I think of you're doing favors for people, and that can even go down the road of like people pleasing, being a nice girl, that kind of connotation. Kindness to me is, again, it's more in alignment with that soul's purpose. So an action can be kind without necessarily being nice. So going back to my colleague situation, the nice thing to do would have been to give the student back all the points he claimed that he missed because he failed to do his own work, right? But that would have been also the pushover, people pleaser. Nobody would have learned anything. If the student would have learned, hey, if I just whine enough, I'll get points for not doing anything. So that would have been nice, but it wouldn't have been kind. Because part of our role as adults, as mentors, to the children in our world, even emerging adults in our world, is to make sure that they understand what is and what isn't appropriate. So is it kind? Meaning, is it in your best interest and is it in their best interest? Maybe it's not nice. Maybe the kind of thing to do is to ground your child for not doing their homework or for, coming in past curfew. Maybe it's not nice, but it's kind because it's going to teach them a really important lesson in responsibility. So is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And again, that kind of circles back to that question number 3. What really needs to be done here? And maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something. Maybe it is, you're in a fight with your son, he's 14, he's broken his curfew, he stayed out too late, he snuck out in the middle of the night, whatever. I've got some friends dealing with a 14-year-old son right now that's breaking all the rules. And what's necessary in that situation is they've taken his car keys and his phone away from him because he kept breaking the rules, he kept pushing the boundaries, and he was going down a path that was going to get him hurt. So is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So some other guideposts, in addition to, if that works for you, in addition to that, is it really in alignment with my soul, with my higher purpose, with my greatest good, however you want to phrase that. So the 5 steps, how to deal with people who push your buttons. And again, it's a process. It takes time to learn. It takes time to hone, to make it yours, and for it to become fast and easy. And there may still be times when you just need to sit down with somebody and work it out before you deal with the situation, and that's okay. What happened? Just the facts. How did it make you feel and why? What needs to be done, and it may be nothing, that needs to be done. What you want to do and why. And this is where you get to list all the things that maybe are vindictive or nasty or not so nice, but just to get it down on paper or to talk about it even just makes you feel a little better. And then you rein it all in and you go, okay, what am I actually going to do here? What's in my best interest? What's in their best interest? What's for the greatest good? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So I hope that that serves you. It's difficult to get through life without having negative interactions with people that you have relationships with. So I'm hoping that this process, as you play with it over time and make it yours, will help you really stay more in alignment with who you want to be and help you make a choice to not only share your truth and walk in your power, but to do it in a way that is really in alignment with you. So much love. It's Dr. Mary. Keep the questions coming in. Dr. Mary at drmarypritchard.com. And if you haven't already, I invite you to claim my new free gift, the Well-Nourished Goddess Starter Kit. It's much of 7 days of self-care goodness and helps you get in alignment.